Say hi to the camera.
Oh.
Welcome the camera. Say hi, everybody, or however you
Okay.
want your greeting of choice.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jamie Forbes from the Great Mural Project.
Hi, everyone. I am Megan Koch from Studio 23. And this is Hey Bay City.
Yeah. So, Jamie Forbes from the Great Mural Project, we have invited you here today so that we might sit at your feet and you will bestow upon us public art knowledges. That's really why
That's
you're here.
ridiculous. Thank you for that.
Well, like Meg and I are kind of teaming up to I don't want to say lead public art in Bay City. That's the wrong word for it, but to encourage public art, try some new ideas, support it, keep it going into the future, and part of that is looking at communities that are already doing it really, really well, specifically communities that have had efforts in place for a long time, multiple years, lots of projects, and lo and behold, we have a great neighbor to the south in Saginaw, and specifically Great Mural Project. So thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, we're going to steal all of your ideas.
I mean, that's really what this is all about, right?
Yeah.
Just
And
in general.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that later on, but maybe before we jump into the thick of the conversation, tell us a little bit about what the Great Mural Project is, when it started, the idea behind it.
So along the same lines of what you're talking about, there's been so much public art in Saginaw for long before we started meeting and working on projects. So we're just kind of one part of a long tradition of public art in Saginaw, and you can see that just by driving around. It's everywhere. But we started meeting in 2017. It was actually sort of born out of a Bay City person's brain. So Maura Brannigan was actually the person that brought it up for the first time. And then a few of us started meeting. So it's it's Elena Parteka, now Wiesner, Dawn Morrell, who owns Avenue Day in downtown, and Cassie Zimmerman, who works for the city. We got together and started talking about what it might be to raise money for public art. None of us are artists, but we just care about it a lot. And it has been one of the most affirming things I've ever been involved in. People are just so generous and kind, and yes, steal the idea. Here's the right person to talk to. All that stuff has just like lined up, and it's just so affirming to be involved in public art in Saginaw because people are just so supportive and wonderful.
Yeah.
So since then we've, the first year was that downtown mural. We did a mural here in Old Town for a year or two, and then we've kind of done multiple projects from there each year, however we can raise money. We've installed, looking at my notes because I can't remember, 42 murals, and we've hired 73 artists over the years. The latest ones that we've done a bunch have been utility boxes, which has been so wonderful because we have so many artists that haven't done big projects yet, but they're so good enough to do that we partnered with the city, who has been our partner so many times on so many projects, to install murals on utility boxes, and that has been awesome. It's just really fun. And, it depends on the year which projects we end up being able to take up, but we've been able to fundraise okay and be able to basically follow through with all of we have a few kind of dream projects. But
Ooh, we might spill the beans after we stop recording. So what year did you start?
2017, we started meeting. 2018 was our first mural.
So 2018 was your first mural, and since then, 42?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, 30 of them are utility boxes, so those go pretty quick, but still.
Yeah, that counts.
This last year was our two biggest projects.
Tell me about those.
Yeah, so they were so amazing. We brought in Kevin Burdick, who's from Fenton, has done a lot of work for the Flint Public Art Project. He worked with John Vasquez on a mural that memorializes Jim Leatherer, who is a civil rights advocate from Saginaw, who participated in the March on Selma, one of the few folks that wasn't from that state. He's also an amputee. So although he is, there's a statue to him in another state, we don't talk about him very much. And so there was this one picture of him walking on crutches with people on both sides, and just an incredible image. We invited his family to the reveal, and they were amazing. They were so cool. And they were so thankful for the recognition, right? Like this is a really important person in Saginaw's history who hadn't really had a place before. So I'm excited. And the mural turned out, of course, Kevin is incredibly talented.
Yeah.
And it turned out awesome. And then there's another, so that's on the Commerce Center downtown. Across the Delta parking lot on the Behringer building is another mural that John Vasquez led with Kayla Peak-Trotner and Devon Collins. The three of them got together. So these two murals are Saginaw's past, right? Jim Leather and Saginaw present. And the mural on the Behringer is a celebration of matriarchs in our community, which I think is so appropriate for the current time and place, that there are just so many moms and grandmas and aunties and daughters and that are driving this city. And so that just seemed very appropriate for the current time. So those are huge murals. They were, the whole, the big tall lifts and I can't imagine being up in a lift with the wind blowing.
Yeah.
So kudos to our brave artists who made it happen.
Goodness gracious. Meg, I want to ask you kind of your perspective on the work that Great Mural Project is doing, because you live in Saginaw, working in Bay City. What do you think about the organization, what they do?
Oh, it is incredibly inspiring.
Thanks.
I mentioned before we got started, Jamie is one of the reasons I have the job that I have now, and she met with me shortly after I got the job at the studio, knowing that public art had a presence in Bay City, and that the studio, one of our pillars is public art. And so it's very inspiring, and I want to learn as much as I can. And so that's why you're here. And I'm so grateful that we get to live in a community that has and champions public art as much as Saginaw, Bay, and Midland do. And I can't wait to watch it grow.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, I think that growth really sprouting in this area from Flint.
Yes.
I mean, we can't really have a conversation in this side of the state about public art without mentioning Flint, Joe Schipani, and everybody that helped start the Flint Public Art Project. I don't know how many hundreds of murals they had, like 300,
so many.
400. Like you drive into downtown Flint, and every building is covered. You go outside in the neighborhoods, every little hut building or shack or shed, like it's just covered in art, and they've done such an incredible job. And what's really interesting is that you kind of see that scale migrating north of 75. Not saying that Midland, Saginaw, Bay City didn't have public art before that.
True.
But I think Flint really served as a model to see what it could become.
So Kara reached out to me
really?
recently, and they're going to start doing public art.
Awesome.
And so it is for sure spreading, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and that I think brings up like this idea of looking to other communities for inspiration. Sometimes in communities we like to be very insular and like, well, we're gonna do it our own way, and we're gonna, and that's not public art at all. Like if you talk to artists in Saginaw, that like John and his crew, they love seeing other artists come in. They love like that kind of cross-pollination of ideas. And so, Jamie, I want to ask you this question. Sometimes in public art, there's a little bit of contention behind who the artist is. Like, are they local? Do I know them? Et cetera, et cetera. How do you, as an organization, go about selecting artists for murals? What's your process like?
Yeah, so in the springtime, when we have some clarity on what our projects are going to be, what we were able to pull off fundraising wise, we put out a Google form, and it just has some basic information. Ask for them to upload some portfolio examples, links to their socials, things like that. If we have particular projects that are pretty different, we'll have a checkbox for, are you interested in this one or both? And then once it closes, we go through and kind of see what we've got and what fits right? Like, for example, we have a mural on La Estrella Bakery on Michigan. Absolutely wonderful family. The dad that owns it is one of 4 who have businesses in Saginaw County. They're a beautiful family, have been there a long time. And so we had an applicant from Detroit, Freddie Diaz, who has tons of experience in and artwork on businesses that it just was the perfect fit. And he didn't want to be involved. He didn't check any other boxes. He said, I want to do this. And he was perfect. Now we hooked him up with Birdie to be, his right-hand man. And Laura met him, who had helped out with some murals for us before. And yes, it is tricky because we do want to invest in artists from here, from the region, from Saginaw, from the city of Saginaw especially. However, just as you described, it's important for people to meet other folks from other communities that, like, we have seen these relationships blossom and people have opportunities. I mean, John painted in Miami.
Yep.
Right? Like, this is not out of the question for us to get these incredible people from this community to have more experience to get ready to go and do things everywhere. And that cross-pollination, we see that in Flint. They have artists from all over the world.
Yep.
And therefore, the artists from Flint have gotten to do amazing things. And so I think the balance is a tricky one, right? We try to strike a good balance. We also try to make space for artists to meet each other. We would like to, be thinking about opportunities to help artists grow and professionalize, because I think that's a real challenge too, getting legal. And so I think that there's a lot of space for us to kind of make some of those connections and make some space for those relationships to continue. But very important to have that mix. If we only had Saginaw artists, I think we would be doing a disservice.
Yep. And I would agree with you. And I want to point out that you mentioned Kevin Burdick earlier on.
Best dude.
Best dude. But he's a great example of the positive influence, inviting experienced artists in this space, world-class artists into a community who also understand it. Because, like, Kevin's first mural, he helped with the Land Conservancy mural on the other side of the Court Street Bridge, I believe. And he was there painting. And I think that was his first mural in Saginaw. And that's when I started following him. And then he gets invited back for another project, did the county health building, tallest mural in the region. Just
beautiful mural.
Amazing. And all the while, he's connecting with John Vasquez, who they ended up being cousins.
It's weird.
It's so weird. And then Devon Collins gets in there too. Before the showdown, Devon had not picked up a spray paint can ever. Had not
done airbrush, right?
Yeah, he was an airbrush artist. Had never done any form of public art. Kevin Burdick is there saying, "You can do it, man. Let's do it. Like, I'll show you some stuff." And then lo and behold, what happens is Kevin's painting these giant murals, and then you've got a big building, a Behringer building, say, "Hey, we could use a mural on this guy." And then John and Kayla and Devon are like, "Hey, this is our first huge mural. Kevin, can you give us some tips? Because it's a completely different ball game." And lo and behold, we have our own City of Saginaw artists painting giant murals that they likely would not have had they not had that instruction from Kevin.
100%.
And so our scene just leveled up because Saginaw had the humility to be able to say, "Hey, you're amazing. We want your art here." And I think there's so many benefits to that. But like you said, having that balance, you don't want a community full of out-of-town art, because part of it is supporting your own artists. Meg, what do you think about this idea of local artists versus out-of-town artists versus the scene? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so we don't struggle with it at the studio because we are very local and rooted in the Great Lakes Bay region. But I think it's very important to get the diversity into our region too. Not saying that our region isn't diverse enough, but there are always going to be more people with different outlooks and different perspectives and different styles and different content and subject matters that do things differently. So I think it's really important that we expose not only ourselves, but our community to those different things as well. How many different communities have rabbits outside? But we just brought in an artist. Her name is Chelsea Garter from Grand Rapids. Cool. She is amazing. But we really have to kind of pick and choose what out-of-towners we bring in and how many of those that we bring in per year, because we do want to showcase our local talent because we have some amazing artists.
Right.
But I think the diversity aspect is so important in all those things that I just mentioned.
Yeah, Jamie, something you said about fitting the project with the artist, I think is such a good clue for that, because if I'm an artist and I work in typically 11 by 17 canvas and you come to me and say, hey, we want to support local artists, we have a 90-foot building that we want you to paint, I don't know if I'd be successful at that. Like, it's a completely different ballgame. Or like the La Estrella, you want someone from that community who connects with that. Yes. And you might be able to pull somebody from your own community. You may not, and that's totally fine. So that idea of looking at the project and what you want, what the community wants, and then saying, okay, which one of our artists could fit that? Are there other artists that fit that better? And that's, I think, how you create a good scene.
Yeah. I mean, there's one particular artist in Saginaw who does amazing portraits, who I have like, please apply.
Yeah.
And he's never done big stuff like that. And every year I hope he will, and he probably won't. That being said, if I can get him to take on like an intermediary project, maybe I could show him that he should have giant murals on big buildings.
Dip the toe in.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the matching part is really important. Also, we've been able to, first of all, Kevin has the best spirit ever when it comes to that stuff. Yep. And that's why he is so good at that role. He just really is special. But we're so lucky to have so many artists in this area that have that spirit. I mean, John doing Showdown, right? Mm-hmm. That's just like everybody come and get along and make beautiful things. We are so lucky in that respect. But also, like, we have in the past paired a less experienced artist with a more experienced artist, which I love because, I mean, we see it right in our people that have had the opportunity to do that. I mean, under Kevin, for example, really then be able to say, I painted on this big mural, so I'm ready to do another one for myself.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah. And so that's been really fun. And fortunately, when we've made those pairings, people have been up for it. People have had, they've had a good attitude about it. They've made sure that artist under them had a great experience. And I'm really thankful for that, because I don't think that's necessarily always how it goes.
Yeah.
You know?
Awesome. You said like an intermediary project, and I wrote down a note. I want to ask you about the utility box project because I think it's so cool for a lot of different reasons. But explain what the utility box murals are and give us the detail.
100% stolen from Flint. So if anyone knows where the Torch is in Flint, there's an alley that you walk down to get to it. And they have there's a ton of art in that alley, and it incorporates. So Polly Everett, I think, is the one that did most of that, which he did 2 utility boxes for us. But basically, like, incorporating the infrastructure to make it look cool. And I just thought that was such a neat idea. So, I mean, something that we've talked about since we started was bringing beauty to underutilized places, right? We can't wait for developers to fix this for us. Mm-hmm. Let's make it pretty. Let's make it attractive. Let's make it feel safe and vibrant and a place you want to visit without that.
Yeah.
And so the utility boxes we see everywhere, right? They're just like part of the scape that we drive past or walk past or bike past all the time, and we don't even see them because they're just there. And so we went to the city and said, hey, will you let us paint these? We tried going to some other people too, and they were like, no, we're afraid you'll paint them shut. And the city was like, sure, let's try it out. And which is, music to our ears. The city has been so open-minded about our stuff. And so we got permission for 15 the first year. We did those murals, and that was awesome. And then by the second year, we had a lot more people interested because they saw what a nice bite-size project that was. And, it allows us to have more work and more artists, but it also allows us to stretch our work further into the neighborhoods, which I think is awesome. Mm-hmm. And, bring the whole point of public art is that we want to make sure that everyone can access art. There's a place for art that is intentional, certainly. I mean, Studio 23 is an example of that. Yep. The Saginaw Art Museum and a million other wonderful, precious parts of our culture and the state and the country and the world. But it's also important for us to have art that you don't have to you don't have to have any extra time or any extra money to access. So we like it for that reason too. And I mean, we had a 13-year-old paint utility box last year, and it turned out amazing.
Yep.
The corner of Fralia's. And so like, this has just been a lovely, just a great way to give people an opportunity to, make their mark and feel ownership over these regular things, but that are now beautiful and they're going to get attention.
I love what you said about it being a bite-sized project, and so it's accessible for people. I don't know about painting a wall of a building, but that utility box is just about the size of a canvas, and I can, if I screw something up, I can fix it. Like it's a little bit more manageable. You get so many more artists. I also like that it expands. I don't want to say a stereotype of public art, but it's really easy to say public art equals murals on walls of buildings. And this utility box project that you guys did and Flint did, expands that a little bit and say, well, like walls are an option, but what else can we throw paint on?
Well, and I think that we see that in Midland for those benches they did that turned out so cool. And we saw artists from elsewhere in the region be able to paint those. And then also, if it's cement, let's paint it. Like you've painted so many things in Bay City too. Like where is a place that like we might as well put something there? I mean, I have little cement spots in various places that I'm like, I can just get someone to cover that weird stuff up and make it beautiful real quick, right? It can be anything.
Yeah. Meg, I want to ask you this, like, because I'm kind of going on this rabbit hole of expanding what public art can be. Like, do you have any thoughts or ideas or like projects that you want to see happen that might go beyond a mural on a wall of a building?
Yeah, so we at the studio, I should say, we have funding for a student sculpture that we want to use out of recycled materials from OmniSource. And we are kind of in the process of figuring that out. We've had the application out, so if you have a child or student interested in applying, let me know. And expanding that to sculptures. And I know Public Art Passport is doing a similar type contest where I think they're putting 3 sculptures in each county. I just talked to Megan the other day about it, and it sounds amazing. And I just got something on it. So I think having more than just murals and having sculptures and having the cool like rabbits outside of the courthouse here in Saginaw. I think little things like that really make an impact and catch you off guard. So like when I'm driving to work, like, oh, there's the rabbits, they're only out for a week a year or something like that. Little things like that I think can really add up and make an impact. I love the utility box idea. I do want to do it.
Let's do it.
So I think we can make that happen too. But I think the whole idea with public art is that conversational piece between the viewer and the art piece itself. And we're going to get a little deep, but
I'm ready.
But whatever that experience is for that person and the artwork, I think whether it's taking a selfie in front of it, how is that artwork interacting with that person, and how is the person interacting with that artwork? It can be a mural, it can be a sculpture. Are they climbing on it? Are they taking a selfie with it? Is it the angel wings that you can stand in front of, and then you're an angel?
Something about their history from it,
right?
Yeah,
all of these different experiences is that like conversational piece, and it's all silent and it's just in your head, but you have to think a little bit about the piece as you're looking at it or as you're appreciating it and experiencing it.
So I think that's a really brilliant segue to this question. How do you go about selecting the subject of the mural? Let's say you use murals as the example. How do you go about deciding what that mural is going to be? Because sometimes in communities, that can be the contentious thing. Half the community is like, oh my goodness, that's beautiful and brilliant. I love that. And then the other half is like, how dare you defile this building with this? So, Jamie, from your experience, is there a best way to go about it? How do you go about deciding what that mural is going to actually be?
I think it depends a bit on what the nature of the program of the thing is. We have lots of awesome business owners that have commissions, right? They pay someone to put a mural up. In which case, it's their decision what it is, right? They're paying for it.
Right.
And that is 100% fine. And then you get to pick which ones you like and which ones you don't like, and you close your eyes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's one thing. Like, that is one valid, in my opinion, valid way for murals to exist. And then there are projects like ours that are more community driven, so the way that we've done it, and we've kind of come to this by trying a few other ways, and this one just works for us, is that we have a small group of advisors, maybe 3 or 4 people, who are pertinent to the building or the story we want to tell or whatever it is. So, for example, for La Estrella, it was the family, right? For the Jim Leather mural, it was a few members of diverse community groups, because we wanted to be able to tell, the story of Saginaw past and Saginaw present. We try to keep the group small because too many cooks in the kitchen makes things crazy.
Yeah.
And we get them together with the artists that we've picked, and they have a conversation about what they want to, about what style they like, about what content they want to see, what messages, what does Saginaw presently even mean, right? That's a big topic. Mm-hmm. They had an hour and a half conversation about what that means to them. And we then trust the artist to have their freedom to be able to come up with an image from that. Mm. We haven't ever really had to ask for an artist to change anything from that, because those conversations are always so fruitful and are so inspiring and give plenty of content for the artist to digest and put into an image that they feel good about. We try not to go back and forth a bunch, because it also takes a lot of time for an artist to create a thing. And so the more time that you go back and forth with these little tweaks, you're taking away their artistic freedom and you're making them spend more time. And our aim is to pay people fairly. And that means not taking up too much of their time either. But honestly, they've always been so great that we haven't had to do much of that. But I think, we like that idea, because then it's important for people to feel heard, but it's also important for the artist to be able to digest that in a way. And so far, that arrangement has helped both the advisory team and the artist both feel as though they have their space.
It sounds like a critical part of that process is the conversation.
Oh, 100%.
The communication of part of it. You can't just fire off one email, say, hey, we want this mural, and then the artist says, cool, here's the draft, and then boom, you've got public art, baby. It's that
an in-person conversation.
Yeah, you got to talk it through, and you got to make sure people are on the same page so that everybody can move forward feeling really great about it. I hopped on a Zoom call with Joe Schipani after he moved to Mexico. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
And just to pick his brain a little bit, and I asked him this same question, how do you navigate this? Because artists can be divisive, or some people like these certain things and some people don't. And what he said was really interesting to me. Out of the hundreds of murals that he helped bring to Flint, he said there are a lot that I don't like. Mm-hmm. Like I have my preference, I have my taste, and there are a lot of them that I don't really care for. And what he said was, and that's great, because this isn't about me. And I want to throw this encouragement out into the air to no one in particular, is that part of public art is that it's part of a community. And while you may not like a certain piece, that's okay. That's okay that you don't like that, because chances are a lot of other people that do. And you might like something else, and they might like, I don't understand that at all. And that's really just part of living in a 37,000 person community.
Amen.
The idea that you can get 37,000 people to all like one thing, it's just not going to happen. And that's why I think it's so important. Part of the reason it's so important to sustain public art over time, so that you have 43 murals you can pick from. You may not like 10 of them, but you got 32 other ones that are kicking. So
this is a story of life, really. Right?
Yeah, it's a story of life.
Don't look at the stuff you don't want to see.
Yeah, just
it's
don't
okay.
take that street, maybe.
It's fine. You'll be okay.
Yeah, but so he said it's not all about me, but then he added the qualifier, even if I don't like those murals, they're all great art. And I love that about what he said, that we sometimes conflate like a high standard with a preference. Like, no, you can have world-class art that you're not really into.
This must happen to you all the time, Meg. Do you feel, I mean, this must be like part of your job at the very core. Like, I'm sure that your favorites come along.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, talk to us about
Absolutely.
that. Like, how do you balance, like, because you're
That's tough.
selecting like a gallery and like the exhibit, like walk me through your brain.
That's a scary question. But so my history is in art. My background is in art history, and I hated the Renaissance for a very long time. And you know, a lot of people that love the Renaissance, right?
Yeah.
Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, all of them, the masters. I couldn't stand it because all it was Madonnas. I thought it was boring. Over time, as I've taught it, I've really learned to appreciate it. But it's just, it's very similar to that, where I also love abstraction. Our whole Tabor gallery right now is abstraction. And we were just having a discussion this morning at the front desk because our poor administrative assistant, Emily, is probably going to hear, oh, my kid could do that for the next 2 months.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's not the case. And I totally get abstraction is not everyone's thing, but I love it. I think it's so interesting. It makes me think. It makes me think about color juxtaposition and like the core, like formal elements of art. And so everyone is not going to like everything, and that is very okay. And I mean, the same goes for murals. I would love to see an abstract mural.
Yeah. Ooh.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
The first one's kind of abstract, but yeah, we could do weirder.
Yeah.
I love this part of the conversation because I think it's key to a community really supporting a public art scene or not. I think for Bay City, if we want to pull this thing off and we want to crush public art, like we all have to be on the same page with that, because every time a
100%.
mural going up, if people are like, boo, no, I hate that, like that's a downer for the people that are leading it. You're scaring artists away, especially if they're local artists. Can you imagine being a local artist?
Or less experience.
Yeah, putting an
Crush
amazing
your little
piece of
soul.
art, and then you hop on Facebook and people are like torpedoing this work that is really great, and they just don't like it. So I think if we want to have a successful public art scene, we have to all get on that page of the difference between preference and standard. All the art should be at a high standard, absolutely.
For sure.
That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to fit everybody's preferences, and it likely won't. But that's part of building the scene. 42 murals, 400 murals, whatever. You take your pick. Take those streets, look at those in the morning. Shield your eyes if you don't like it. But it's really easy to torpedo a blossoming scene through criticism that's misplaced. So
the question is, what are you guys planning?
I don't know. Yeah.
You guys have lots of good spots for murals.
Yeah, we're right now we're talking about an idea that because throughout Bay County we have a lot of smaller communities, and we want to kind of connect some of those communities. Like, we can't do murals in every single one, so we picked 4. We've got Bay City, of course, but then we're looking at sites in Auburn and Essexville and Pinconning. And then the idea being each one of those murals fit within a similar theme as a way to connect these communities through public art, but then also through the theme of the mural. I think that would be cool. Also, like, showing smaller communities that, like, you guys are awesome. You're amazing. And this is something that you can have as well. That's kind of the project that we're thinking.
I love it. That's cool. Are you going to get all the artists together so they can become best friends and work on everything together?
That would be amazing.
Would recommend.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't tell you to not paint on roads where people drive on all the time. Okay, I can also tell you what not to do. Don't do that.
So let's talk about that. No, 'cause I think it's really important to talk about like things that may not work, and because I got to witness this firsthand here in Saginaw. So tell us about this project.
So what was it? 2020? I don't even remember. COVID is just a blur in my brain.
Yeah, I think it was 2020.
So we applied to a Bloomberg Philanthropies grant, which is like wild, right? That's like Oprah or something. Yeah. Like, right? It's like not tangible at all. And they picked us, and we were the first of 15 cities in the first run to install asphalt murals. And we did 3 intersections, closed down the road for a Saturday and a Sunday. The city helped us out with that too. That was a joint application with them. And we hired a bunch of artists and a bunch of musicians and restaurants to feed people. And it was one of the happiest days of my life.
It was an amazing day.
Phil, I have to tell you, when I'm sad, I watch that video.
Do you really?
Oh my God. Aww. I watched it like 2 times in the last 6 months.
Yeah, because I got to run around that day interviewing folks, taking photos, taking videos. And it was awesome. There's so many people. The Girl Scouts were like lining the bridge. Everybody was painting their butterflies, and you'd walk over to the other side, and then you'd walk over, and people would be painting the intersection. Like it was casual, but people were watching. It was an amazing day.
We had so many good people painting. It was, and like the public got to paint a little bit. It was. Yeah. We did butterflies over the bridge. They're still there. But yes, we learned that there was a reason why Bloomberg also didn't have much advice to offer us, because there's not really good materials. Mm-hmm. So we went to Northeastern Paint, who has been our absolute BFFs through all this. They're incredibly generous, kind humans. They, I gave them like a framed picture of the utility boxes, and it sits right by the register. It's just so flattering.
Oh, I love that.
They're sweets. They're just sweethearts. And so we said, hey, we don't know what to do here. What do you think? And so we did whatever they told us. And it was really, it was still the best thing ever, but like you can't really paint on roads where people break and it's just, it doesn't work. That being said, they had us turn in pictures for like 2 years after, and they were able to assess how it held up, and us along with all those other cities have made it better for other spots that they're still doing asphalt murals, but they're I'm sure lasting a lot longer now than they did with us, which is fine, right? Like what eases my mind about it is that it was about the event. We had been stuck in COVID for so long, and this was one of the first things that, because we were outside, it was safe. And so I feel great about that. The day itself was worth it. Yep. And also that money didn't come from this community. And so that also kind of eases my mind that like, well, it's gone. And honestly, all the butterflies are still on the bridge. We're still like trying to figure out how we can close off the bridge to finish the last little section that we didn't get to last time. And that'll look good for a long time. So it's okay. But yeah, it's a guess and check. Yeah. We're lucky to have so many generous folks that are willing to give their lessons. But I've talked to so many communities about asphalt murals and murals in general, and I'll tell you everything, because it's not mine to hold, right? Mm-hmm. It's mine to give you so that you don't make the same, mistakes that we did. Mm-hmm. Or, you want this sort of quasi-legal document that we hacked together off of a bunch of Googled things and had an attorney friend who doesn't specialize in that look at it. Yeah. Here, take it. Take it right now. Whatever. We're all in this together.
I love you talking about this. Mistakes. I don't even want to call it a mistake because like
a twist in the road.
Yeah, you were operating the best you could on the information you had. Bloomberg Philanthropies are like, hey, we have this idea and we want to give you money to see how it works. And so like they didn't know how it was going to turn out. So I don't even want to call it a mistake. But I think that's important to point out when you look at like starting something new, like Hay Bay City itself. Like brand new, like how do we do this talent attraction retention thing? Because we had never done it in Bay County before, let alone really the region. And so this entire process up until this point has been like, hey, we have this really good idea and we're willing to work hard and we're going to screw things up and then we're going to fix them. And then we're going to do a lot of things right. And then maybe those things that need to get better, we're going to talk about them, and then we're going to try to fix them, and then we're going to learn, and then rinse and repeat that over time. And that's all part of the process. And
That kind of harkens back to what you said before, which is we also need as a community to be accepting of people making
Yes.
mistakes.
For sure.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
it is fine to let your voice be heard, but also please like keep it constructive. Like people are working really hard, and yes, they are not perfect. No one is, literally no one is perfect, and so like just if you hate it. So I think back to the intro to Reese Saginaw, so Alex Mixter's film, where he interviews. I think it was Jimmy Green, and Jimmy Green said, you can either work on this stuff with us, or could you please just shut your mouth? And I really think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Like you could, I type out the sassy comment and then I just don't post it because like it's cathartic to type out the sassy comment, but like, is it helpful? No, it's not helpful.
Yeah.
Just scroll on by, man. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, and I think of all the things, public art has the potential to really encourage that in people. Like this is art. Like this is art. People are artists. We're supporting artists. We're making that once vacant building now look better than at least better than a vacant building. And so it's an opportunity to kind of test out the community and say, hey, if we want to do something even more complicated than painting a mural on a wall, we've got to check that box first. If we can't have a healthy conversation about what goes on this 10 by 17 foot square space on this brick wall and be successful, there's a lot more complicated and more difficult and more critical things than that. And so it's, I think, a good practice session for
I mean,
how
I
do we
think
talk
about
things.
Like I think about some of the wild ideas that people have tried or conceived of. Like for example, in the art museum right now, there's an exhibit of inflatable fabric art, and it's so cool. But that's like one step further maybe than art on a wall, right? So like if we can do this, what else can we do that's even more wild? And I can think of people in each of our communities that are pushing that envelope. And there again, if it's not your bag, just move on. But how this is a good trial period for us to to dabble and see what works and what doesn't, and to like grow our own understanding of art and expression and how that feels.
Yep, exactly. I would love to ask you about maybe some upcoming projects from the Great Mural Project. Do you want to spill the beans?
Yeah. So I actually asked my comrades if I could do this in advance because I was afraid.
Okay.
But it's been around enough. It probably doesn't even matter. So we are fundraising for our projects this year. So everybody knows Memorial Cup is like the thing. We had hoped to maybe have something done by Memorial Cup, but ain't going to happen. So we are planning a mural on the side of Good Rose Flower Shop, which is on State Street.
Cool.
They are like fourth generation florists there. They are spectacular. Just like another celebration of small business in this community. We are so blessed. I mean, you feature them all the time. We are so blessed by generous, kind, small businesses that just really enrich this place. And they are an example of that. They had actually reached out to an artist, and they just couldn't quite swing it. And so we're going to help them out, hopefully be able to make it happen. And they're being generous to the project too, which is awesome. And so they're interested in, and who knows how it'll play out, but they're interested in having the mural have some sort of featuring the moments in life where flowers are important, which I think is very thoughtful. I think could be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm like imagining what that could look like.
I like that.
It's cool, right?
Because it's also something like Good Rose, you're going to be around forever.
Yes.
But let's say like another business, I sell sandwiches and I want a giant like sandwich on the side of my building. I may not be around next year. I may not be around after that. And now I've gifted the community a giant picture of a sandwich, which could be really cool. It could be super funny.
Yes.
But like in this case, flower shop, but then also there's a concept a little bit larger than that. And I love that.
Yeah. And then we're working on ironically, 2 asphalt murals. Whoops.
Well, it's going to go better this time.
Yeah, it's going to go better. We don't have it in a place where people drive on it. So rah. So we're going to do, so we're hoping to do two large squares of cement under the downtown Saginaw Farmers Market Pavilion at SVRC Marketplace.
Oh, that'll be cool.
And then also there's that spot behind SVRC towards the river where they have, it's called the Riverfront Gateway, where they've put a lot of money, the Riverfront Commission has put a lot of money into sprucing up that area because there's this lovely path along the whole river that no one seems to know about and walk it. So they have added a fence and like really made it look so nice. So we were talking about painting the pathway down to the river and about the same amount of space down the river, along the river walk. So those are our hopes for this year. Both of those cement murals would involve some element of public paint because that is really fun and we just love it. So the way it would work is an artist would design something digitally and then sort of like outline it onto the pavement, and then we would invite the public to come and paint.
Cool.
And then the artist would make it look perfect. And we've done that on a few other murals before. It's been really fun. I also just think that like as adults, we don't pick up brushes. I mean, if we're not artists, right? We don't pick up brushes. And it turns out when you do, it's like so relaxing and lovely to focus on a thing.
We were just coloring. It's funny that you said this because we were recording this right after Easter, and me, my wife, and our 5-year-old Evelyn were at the table on Saturday coloring Easter eggs, but in this like it's like called like egg-tastic or something. So you put this little egg in and you press, you turn it on and it spins the egg, and
fun.
so you can use markers and color it that way. And Evelyn did her 2 eggs, and she went off to do something else. And I stayed there for like another half hour, just like, let's hard boil more eggs. I need more of this.
This is so fun.
Yeah, because it is super fun. Yeah.
I mean,
You
it's
got
just
to exercise that right side of your brain. And as adults, we don't typically.
Yeah.
Well, and
So
that's
you
why I
got
love when
to.
institutions are like making space for that. That you don't
Yes.
have to be an artist to be an artist.
Art for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's what we're hoping. So we're still raising money. If anyone wants to give us some money for
Send money.
our fiscal sponsor is the Saginaw Community Foundation, and you can donate online. And you can
Cool.
send a check and blah blah. Anyway,
Head over there. Give them all your cash. I want to explore one more idea. This idea of the synergy between different communities. We hear a lot about regionalism or the Great Lakes Bay region, things like that, and sometimes I think the perception is that that's simply organizational, kind of like top down. But I think like the public art specifically offers a really incredible avenue for different communities to get to know each other and send artists over and like almost like peaceful ambassadors.
Yeah.
They like, I come in peace from Saginaw. I mean, like we had Kayla paint at Winona Park and like a bunch of sharing of artists. But I think if we're more public about like conversations like this, like us from Bay City coming to you and saying, like, tell us what you need to, like what we need to know. We're gonna swing by Flint and do the same thing with Jaron down there in Flint, and like let's learn from each other. And I think that has so many possibilities and benefits. One of them being is that it shortens that learning curve. Like Meg and I could kind of stumble our way through this public art thing for the next 25 years. And
I don't think it would take you that long.
like, okay. Or we could say, hey, Jamie, you're cool. Let's chat. Jaron Sage down in Flint, Joe Shapani, let's chat. Kevin Burdick, let's chat. And now instead of that really long, very difficult process, you're like, hey, don't paint on intersections. It's not going to go well.
Right.
And like, okay, cool. We can do something better than that.
So we
won't do that.
We talked to Bay City when we were going to do it because they had an asphalt mural a long time ago that has held up shockingly well, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And then I asked Joe stuff probably 4 times a year. I'm like, Joe, what do I do about this? It's so great though. It's so nice that that's going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, and count on us if there's anything we can possibly do for your project. We'll certainly, share whatever that we've learned or show up to volunteer or whatever you need. And I think that's the vibe that we should all be
Yep.
I mean, no matter if it's public art or whatever, right?
Yep.
I think we see a lot of that happening, which is why we can all be successful and like feel good about this thing we're trying to do, which doesn't always work out perfectly, right? Because when you ask, people are like, oh yeah, I believe the best of this. So let me give, let me help, whatever I can do.
Yeah, there's so much potential. I get to kind of have front row seats to this and be a witness to
You have the best seat.
yeah, like, and just to see how specifically like Midland, Bay City, and Saginaw can really fit together like puzzle pieces. And like Midland has resources that Saginaw and Bay City don't. Bay City has elements of the community that Saginaw and Midland don't. Saginaw likewise, and I think it's specifically in a relatively small region, we do ourselves such a disservice when we cut ourselves off either unintentionally or intentionally from these other really amazing communities that can improve not only our lives, but the life of our entire community. We can come back to Bay City and say, you'll never guess what we learned from Saginaw. It's amazing. And they're sending artists over and we're talking, we're having this conversation. And then you can apply that to so many other things other than just public art, because now this communication channel is open and you're feeling inspired and like, okay, now we feel like a team. And I'd love to like reframe that word region as like a team. Like, hey, like we are all in this thing together. Let's all try to make this successful together. So,
well, there's also been a lot of ways in terms of that visiting vibe that you had. There's also a few ways that there has there's been a real effort lately to try to compile all the information of where a public art is located.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
I mean, we both were kind of it.
Yeah, so Megan McAdow at the Marshall Fredericks Museum at SVSU started this initiative called Public Art Passport, and it is a website that you can go to. I think it's just publicartpassport.com, and all of the public art, we're working on getting all of the public art in the region or in the team compiled into one website. So you can go to that, or visitors or travelers can visit our website and go to all of those, and they can easily find them, easily see the artist, easily access that. And it is a wonderful resource that we're still really building.
Nice and then also the Convention and Visitors Bureau has recently put a lot of, we had like a map for our utility boxes and for our murals, which we used to try to get people to visit. But, obviously like, we write grants, but we're not formal. I mean, Cassie's very talented, but yeah, what they're putting together is going to be kind of next level. And so they're doing one map for each community, which I think is going to be a big deal.
I think Saginaw and Midland are done. I think they're just working on Bay.
I might have sent them a big pile of things.
Oh, well, maybe they're updating Saginaw.
Yeah, but they're so good and very thorough. And I think it's going to be, so they believe that this is a thing people should visit when they come here, right?
Yeah.
Convention Visitors Bureau, they're people coming from out of town. And so like they see that this is an economic driver. So like we have to all, like this is real.
And that's a whole other conversation as the economic driver that public art can be.
Let's talk about that maybe. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think it goes hand in hand with Hey Bay City's initiative of talent attraction and retention. I mean, public art is proven to bring people to areas and keep them in beautiful areas because public art makes places beautiful, right? So public art has that potential, and it also has a million other benefits, but one of the economic drivers is public art. And so the more public art we have, potentially, the more we can attract and retain our people.
I love that you brought this up because it makes me reminds me of a story. I was at a meeting and I was talking about public art as one of the initiatives for Hey Bay City, and a business owner who is a friend of mine raised his hand and he said, "So, how is this going to make us more money?" and I came out with some statistics and things like that. But what I should have said was, you just opened a new restaurant. did you make it beautiful or did you make it look not beautiful? Why? Mm-hmm. And that, like, I think that's the answer right there. It's people love beautiful things. We love beautiful things. We love things that look like their quality, that they're held to a high standard, and that's why we invest money in making a restaurant look beautiful. That's why we spend $3,000 on that light fixture instead of a $20 AA thing that you can buy from Home Depot, because that communicates care beyond just like the economic part of it. It communicates that we are a community that cares about itself.
Yes.
And no one wants to be part of a community that doesn't care about itself. They're going to find some other place.
And they want to feel like they belong. And so that's where I think like the diversity aspect comes into, because we do have very diverse communities. And if we are marginalizing people, they're not going to feel welcome. They're not going to feel like they belong in an area. So that's why public art has the ability to do that, to make people feel like they belong in a certain area. And I think it's incredible, the impact that public art can have on so many different things.
Amen. So publicartpassport.com, if you want to check out that website. I think it's such a great tool because, like you're talking about, with one of the benefits of public art is that you can go out in your community and you can experience it. One of the hard parts of public art is that if you have a lot of it, and especially spread out across a large area, you kind of got to know where it is if you want to go look for it. And so publicartpassport.com, it's going to be such a great resource to be able to say, hey, I'm going to be in Saginaw. I want to see some of this. Hey, I'm going to be in Bay City. I'm going to be in Midland. I want to know where this is. Like, oh, that's just around the corner. You could be like on the wrong side of the building and like, where's this thing everybody's talking about?
I mean, another one, I mean, like Frankenmuth has tons of public art and they have, it's probably on the Convention and Visitors Bureau site. There's like a tour that you can take, like a walking tour to see public art. There's tons of Kevin Burdick and Stephen Hargash and Frankenmuth, amazing murals. So that's another, cool. And they have that walking tour because they know that visitors want to see public art. So once again, confirming that this all actually is real.
It is.
Public art is real, people. Jamie Forbes, you are real. Thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I feel successly wisdomed.
Oh, geez. So we're just trying it next to you. That's all. Don't give me too much. Don't give us too much credit.
Yeah. Well, I love being like feeling like we've got communities around us that are also exploring this and getting the feet off, like knowing that this is important and figuring it out as we go. I love that.
Well, that Joe did talk about perhaps, a joint project at some point. So maybe we could all get in on that.
That'd be so fun, Joe Shapani. Come back from Mexico, buddy. Yeah. Well, Jamie Forbes, thanks so much for the time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
What? You guys are awesome.
Thank you. That was fun.